Here's a walkthrough of our Solitaire home coming out of the Deming factory. First entering this door, the bottom of the door appears to be bowed. The opening of this door is very difficult, either caused by the bow in the bottom or the debris in the door. Door needs replacement or to be fixed otherwise. There's paint. If I can get that to catch up. Paint. Markups along the door. Paint the jamb. Paint on both panes of the door. Moving above, there are cuts in paint in the drywall. Areas along the bottom of this trim that have not been fully painted. Over application of the wall paint onto the trim. Moving to the kitchen, there's a significant paint marks on the cabinets, chips out of the corner of the cabinets. It's a pretty significant scuffing on most of the cabinets that can't just be wiped off too easily. Some areas where the cabinets have been roughed up. On pretty much every single outlet cover, there is some paint and some paint on some outlets as well. It's clear that the painting process was done after the outlet covers were installed, which is non-standard. Another area where trim does not have paint fully applied to it. Pretty much all the exterior windows have either exterior or interior paint applied on them, and not just a little bit, quite a significant amount. Some paint or drywall on the kitchen sink. Paint misapplied to cabinets. Areas of missed paint or misapplied paint, either around these outlet covers. And then again, there's paint on this outlet cover and the outlet itself. Paint on the tile. Some more nicks in the cabinetry. Area of the nick in the cabinetry. Another example of paint on outlet covers. Damage to trim, misapplied paint. Door does not shut unless shoved closed. Damage to door, misapplied paint. Misapplied paint on this trim and in the corner. Paint on the floor. Or paint, drywall, major scuffing that can't be rubbed off on this appliance. Paint on the kitchen island. See, we're on there. And then paint along the bottom. We have a buckled floor tile here. Let's see the buckle in there. This transition floor piece is not sticking to the floor. The installer said that it won't stick in this temperature. They should probably use a couple of heat guns and get this applied properly. A couple areas of missed paint along the marriage line here. Some damage to the drywall. Misapplied paint on this trim. dent in the drywall again over here. Some pretty sloppy mud work from this side. Missing a fire extinguisher. Missed paint, paint on outlet cover. Same thing over here. More exterior paint on this window. You know, some scuffing, discoloration, whatever you want to call it. Misapplied paint within the window. A couple different places. Paint not fully applied to the other side of this. You can still see the wood color coming through. And misapplied paint up here. I'm going to stop covering the trim and the outlet covers at this point. It's continuous throughout the house, so it'd be a waste of time to cover that in every single instance. But it will be fully noted in the document. Misapplied paint. Paint on the floor. You know, just messed up door hardware. Just painted on, whatever. You know, this, I don't know if it comes out in this lighting, but this whole piece of trim is pretty sloppy. Really rough work here. This whole door has miscellaneous spots of scuffing that doesn't rub off, and paint down in this corner. Messed up trim. Doesn't go all the way to the wall. Just stops at the door. You know, big spots of paint on the exterior door. That cannot just be painted over. That has to be replaced. Paint, again. Messed up wood there. The door jamb. Miscellaneous spots of paint all over the floor. Moving into the master bedroom now. Paint on the door. Paint on the door. More paint on the door. Paint on the door hardware. More paint on the door. Paint not on the trim. Paint. Paint on the switches. Just paint the switches. Paint on door hardware. Misapplied paint on the trim. Paint on the floor. Paint on the floor. Damaged drywall. Look at this trim. That's like almost 1/4 of an inch. It's just lopsided on the floor right there. I mean, paint in the outlet. I don't know if you can see that, but you actually have paint inside of the outlet. You can't see clear to the back of this. Messed up master bath door jamb. Damaged drywall. Just peeling floor tile. Oh yeah. Again, every exterior window has paint on it in some regard. Misapplied paint runs throughout the house. Like I said. I said I wasn't going to cover it, but I'm going to cover it. Changed my mind. Paint on the cabinets. Major nicks in the cabinets. Can't just be fixed with touch-up paint. You know, paint, scuff, scuff. This door, yeah, kind of a sometimes thing, whether or not it works. Right now it's working. But the way these cabinets are applied, just a piece of plywood running up and down. So these feel pretty flimsy, but I guess that's not a defect. No, see, here's what I mean. It does this sometimes. It won't close all the way unless you torque it the right way. More paint. Missed paint. Another thing in all of these shelves, I don't know if this is standard, but a lot of slop in those shelves. Again, I'm not used to it, but maybe that's standard. I don't know. There's a chip or something coming straight out of the ceramic of the tile. Toilet seat cover. Toilet has paint all over it, you know. Paint on the outlet cover, and then missed paint around the outlet cover. I think, yeah, this is the one. This shelf just barely fits on these little pegs that you stick into the wall. So it just falls down at the slightest provocation. So more scuffs and paint on the cabinets. Like I said, like there's some pretty massive gaps. These things are just barely resting on these pegs. These were cut very poorly. More paint. Yeah, more paint on the floor right there. Paint on the shower. Paint on the shower door. Did I go in the utility room yet? I don't know. Now, paint on the door hardware. More sloppy trim. Scuff and nicks out of the doors. More nicks on the paint hardware. Paint on the trim. Paint on the door hardware. And again, there's paint on the door. Paint on the door jamb. Around the breaker box, misapplied paint, and then also missed paint on the wall itself. See, just paint all over the trim, all over the place. Around this water shutoff box, sloppy drywall and missed paint. All the outlet covers have paint. Universally, we'll need new outlet covers. This paint. More paint on windows. The inside of these window jambs are pretty good. Damaged drywall. Damaged drywall. Paint on outlet covers and outlets. Paint on trim. Looks like a scuffed up wall. Paint on trim. Paint on trim. Paint on trim. Drywall mud on the door. Scuffs on the door. Paint on the door handle. Damaged trim. Paint on door. See that fiber reinforcing tape for the drywall right over in here? Just, you know, they completely film this outlet cover or cut it out too rough. I think this is like some carpet fibers. It just got painted to the wall or something like that. There's no trim in 2 of the bedrooms in the closets. 1 bedroom does have trim. There's paint on things where there should not be paint. There's missing paint in other areas. I don't know if this is the last home that came out of the factory on a Friday or something, but man. Missed paint, overpaint, paint where there's not supposed to be paint. Big old scuff on this door. I don't think it's coming off. You know, missed paint around the marriage line here. And this transition needs some help too. It's going to need more heat than the other one got, at least. Going into this other guest bedroom. Got more paint on outlet covers. Paint inside the window. Paint on the window in a couple places. Lack of paint and trim along the base of the closet. You know, paint where there's not supposed to be paint. Again, in this one. More paint on outlet covers. Another carpet fiber or something painted to the wall. Paint on trim. Damaged drywall. Yeah, paint on that switch. Kind of hard to see in here. Let's see if I can get the flash on. Yeah, missed paint. I guess that comes off. Pretty sloppy trim work above the guest bath. Paint along the interior trim here. I don't know what's going on with this board. I don't know if it's dirt or what. I don't know how somebody installs that. Ran out of storage space there on my phone. I had to delete some things. Yeah, like that's dirt inside the window. I don't know how somebody installs that. Like I was saying, that's crazy. How do you install that and not do anything about that? Several people would have had to work in this area and see that, hopefully. Just not do anything about it. Missed paint, not enough paint there. Too much paint here, paint on the switch, paint on the cover. Same issues going on here. I don't know what the term for this piece of metal trim that goes around the corners where you drywall mud over, but that is exposed in several areas here. You know, guys just roughhousing in here or something. I don't know. I'll paint all of the trim in a couple areas. Yeah. Damaged drywall. Paint on the floor. Paint on the HVAC vents. Paint on the trim. Lack of paint here on this trim. And there is trim in this closet. And there's lack of paint along the bottom there. They caulked or did something, I'm not sure. Paint scuffs on the hardware, scuffs on the door. I think that's caulk, I don't know. damage to the drywall, little dent there, and you know, this corner, lack of paint, lack of workmanship. Paint on the hardware. More paint on the panels. Well, that's pretty much it. That's my walkthrough of the home.